I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Who says you can't learn something at a bar? Here they've got theology on tap.
The primary idea is hopefully to provide a venue where people interested in the faith can come.
Church safety takes on a whole new meaning after the murders of a priest and nun. Strike up the band. Meet a group of gifted musicians with a singular harmony.
There's nothing like playing for a crowd like this and, kind of showing off.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Well, a couple of days ago, we took you to a jazz mass. We'll start doing this again.
Yeah, I know. That's right. We really had fun with that one. That's one you probably hadn't heard of before, but you may know of the Latin Mass, the new Mass, or a charismatic Mass. But whatever happened to just the Mass?
Well, we wanted to find out, as a matter of fact, just where it went. So we sent our cameras to a talk in the city. Now, that talk wasn't at a church, though. It was actually at a bar.
Yeah, it was part of a series of talks called Theology on Tap. Have a look.
How many have ever told someone that they have to go to church because it's an obligation? Or how many of you have ever asked, does this Mass fulfill my Sunday obligation? You go to a wedding and it's at 2 o'clock on a Saturday and you say, boy, this might count as my Sunday obligation.
I think the idea, the primary idea is hopefully to provide a venue where people interested in the faith can come, and it's in a very casual atmosphere. And so, somebody that might be unwilling to come to a lecture or a talk happening at a parish might feel comfortable coming to a bar with a friend of theirs.
Why do you go to Mass? Is it because it's an obligation? Or do I go to Mass because Jesus has united me to himself and wants me to walk with him the way God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden, only this is better?
Theology on tap is you come to a bar and get something fruitful in with a theological discussion, a theological talk. But also, sometimes it's not just theological, it's also something to do with the faith that's just very mundane. Like, next time we meet, we're going to be talking about Catholic dating, marriage, and divorce. It's still a moral discussion, but not too theologically heavy. So I think we run the gamut of different topics that can appeal to people.
But Mass is a lot more. It's a sacrifice. Why this is going to be important is, if it's a sacrifice, that means something is sacrificed and someone is sacrificing. Someone has to make an offering. Who makes the offering? Anyone know? Jesus. Thank you. Yes, there will be questions in this talk.
There are a lot of Catholics who don't know much about the Mass, what it's all about, why do we go to Mass? Some people just a ritual. They just go there and they get nothing out of it, and it doesn't affect their lives. So it's good to know what it's all about.
I think he's right that it's easy to think of it as an obligation and say, I go all the time. If I miss one Sunday, it's not a big deal. When you do that, you're really missing the point that it's a gift that God gives us to be with him and to be with other believers. And even if it's just an hour once a week, it's special time that God gives to us to be with him.
We're offering ourselves in the Mass. We believe that Jesus came down to share in our humanity so as to lift us up to share in his divinity.
The mission of the church is the same everywhere. I mean, that is, the church is called to evangelize, to bring souls to Christ, and to always be renewing the church. And I think if the church waits around for people just to show up at Mass and to show up at the church buildings, in a certain sense, we're missing the boat. I mean, the church has to go out. We have to go out to where young people are. We have to go out and see where people are living and working and bring the gospel message to them.
If you say Mass is an obligation, then I went on Sunday and that's it. That's great, now I'm done. But if you say that when we come to Mass, we're fully united with Christ, well, I want more. I want to do this every day. So that's my talk. Amen.
What do you think? We have martinis, now we got Mass on tap, we got all kinds of stuff this week in the show, huh?
I love it. It's like cocktails and Christ, I guess. We could rename this week. But no, it's I think it's great. You're gathering people in a place that is almost like a neutral location for a lot of people, you know. And like the guy said, a lot of people who might not be willing to go to a Mass to learn about Mass or about whatever, you know, might be discussed. It's a good place to kind of bring them in and let them know.
I don't think it's so much a replacement for the Mass. I think it's just, you know, an additional supplement and a way to get people to maybe go to Mass that aren't going to Mass and just learn a little bit more about things. And what I really like about it is that it really comes to, it would be what Jesus would do. He would go to where the people are, right? So he's going to where the people are and talking to the people, and even if it is over a pint or whatever, a hamburger or whatever it may be, which I think is really great. And a lot of what they said is kind of true. You know, you have to kind of take that time and celebrate that time when you're at Mass, but also to learn some more things. And also, you know, they're younger people, so it's nice to be able to talk about issues that pertain to that, you know, your own demographic.
Yeah, build that foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, stay tuned. There is much more current straight ahead coming up. We have all the day's headlines, including some takers for the Vatican's offer to the Anglicans.
And guess who's coming to the Vatican? It's the official list of artists who'll meet with the Pope this month.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up just a little bit later, an eclectic group makes a melodic sound.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, the World Series is over, and the winner is Archbishop Timothy Dolan. We told you last week about a wager between the leader of the New York Archdiocese and Philadelphia Archbishop Cardinal Justin Mergali. Well, the Yankees won, so Archbishop Dolan will receive a box of tasty cakes. Republicans were on Capitol Hill today to try to rally opposition to the health care reform bill making its way through Congress. The legislation could be voted on as early as this weekend. Meanwhile, the National Right to Life Committee says a new amendment that some claim bans federal funding of abortion is phony. On tomorrow's show, I'll try to make some sense out of it all. We'll have an interview with a representative from the U.S. Bishops' Conference. Well, he's known as the Green Patriarch for his environmental work, and this week, the head of the Orthodox Church is making his rounds in Washington. Greek Orthodox Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew is the spiritual father of 300 million Orthodox Christians worldwide. Earlier in the week, he met with President Obama at the White House to talk about the fight against global warming. The Patriarch then met with Vice President Biden and Congress. Now, after a meeting at the State Department today, Bartholomew is scheduled to dine with Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton tonight. Well, FBI agents arrested a suspect today in the murder of a nun in New Mexico. It comes as investigators are now combing through an SUV belonging to Sister Marguerite Bartz. Agents have not released the name of the person that was arrested today. Sister Marguerite failed to show up at services on Sunday in Navajo, New Mexico. A colleague then went to check on her and found her dead on church property. An FBI spokesman says agents are withholding the cause of death for the 64-year-old as the investigation continues. Now, that FBI spokesman did say, though, that although there is no evidence now to suggest that Bartz was sexually assaulted, also no evidence that she was targeted because she was a nun.
The Catholic Church in Malaysia is challenging the government's confiscation of 10,000 Bibles that refer to God as Allah. The government claims the word Allah is Islamic and its use in the Bible could upset Muslims. The UK branch of the traditional Anglican Communion has decided to accept the Vatican's offer to convert. The group of conservative Anglicans made the announcement on its website and even recommended a bishop to oversee them after their conversion. The Vatican has yet to announce the specific procedure that will allow Anglicans to convert. In other news from the Vatican, Pope Benedict will hold a summit early next year with world leaders. The conference will be titled Witness of Christ in the Political Community. Among those invited, Vice President Biden, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. A bit sooner, the Pope will meet with artists from around the world later this month. As we hear from Rome Reports, we now know who's on the official guest list.
The Vatican has released the official guest list for this year's conference with artists. Pope Benedict XVI has invited hundreds of artists from around the world to the Vatican. The goal is to rekindle the relationship between art and religion. The guests include architect Daniel Lipskin, who designed the Freedom Tower at the former World Trade Center in New York, Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava, along with Grammy-nominated singer Andrea Bocelli, Brazilian pianist Álvaro Siveiro, and film score composer Ennio Morricone. Among painters and sculptors, Arnaldo Pomodoro and Father Marco Rupnik, whose mosaics have adorned churches around the world, will also be in attendance. The Pope also invited Italian scholar Claudio Magris, novelist Susanna Tamaro, and British film director Peter Greenway, along with actors Monica Guerritori, Terence Hill, and film director Franco Sefirelli. In all, about 500 artists have been invited. The summit, which will take place November 21st inside the Sistine Chapel, also marks the 10th anniversary of the letter Pope John Paul II wrote to artists. It was then when the late pontiff held a similar event.
Kennedy Center honors of the Vatican, in a way.
That's right. It kind of brings back memories for me of the story we did on the mass honoring artists in Manhattan not all that long ago. So
yeah.
It's very nice that they've got that outreach going on for the Pope at the Vatican.
And a wide variety of people, writers, architects, everyone from, artists and actors. It's nice to see that word artist is used in such a broad term, because so many people who just really are creative are in fact artists in their own right. Right,
and of course here locally, Daniel Libeskind, the architect of the new centerpiece of the World Trade Center complex.
That is true.
So,
well, I'll look forward to seeing it erected. Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead.
Coming up, how secure is your church? The recent murders of a priest and a nun may have people asking that question.
Earlier in the show, we told you about an arrest in the case of a nun who was murdered in New Mexico. Closer to home last month, a New Jersey priest was killed in his own rectory. A custodian at that church is under arrest.
And it does have people asking, are we safe in our own churches? To find out, I spoke with someone whose company helps churches stay safe and secure. Jeffrey Hawkins of the Christian Security Network. Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for being with us here today on Currents.
Hi, Francesca. Good to be with you.
And today we're talking about essentially church security. You're with the Christian Security Network. Tell us a little bit about what you do and why you guys started your organization.
Well, the Christian Security Network was started in 2008 after many requests for resources and education and different materials and for churches and ministries regarding security and emergency planning, which we found through our research that most churches do not have in place.
Mm-hmm. And, okay, so you're responding to a need that you found out there in the community about a year or two ago. Tell us what people have done with you. I mean, how did they consult with you? How would they go about, how have they used you so far?
Well, we offer a variety of resources and material to better inform and better prepare churches. We offer a free weekly newsletter. We do seminars around the country. We do monthly webinars. We try to approach the subject from a variety of resources, trying to give churches as many things as they can to put measures in place to reduce their risks.
Okay. Well, let's just talk about the basics, right? Church doors growing up, I'm a little bit older. Going back, we're always open, it seemed, all day long. Nowadays, that's not so much the case, partly because you don't necessarily always know who's coming in your doors, but also because you may not have the money to staff it in a security way that you might be able to. You'll recall in New Jersey not too long ago, someone was actually killed inside the church by somebody who worked there as well. What do you say to all this in terms of facing the economic climate, coupling that with the safety measures? What can people do?
Well, definitely the church isn't the place that we remember growing up where doors can be left open and staff and volunteers could just be left unattended. There are many safety risks that we have to deal with, and a lot of it has to do, I think, with security is just misunderstood when it comes to churches. Many people think church security is all about guns and guards and metal detectors and things like that, and really what we teach is about safety, awareness, training staff, just looking at your operations, and many things that we suggest that churches don't cost anything.
So give me some examples. What are the things that people can do?
Well, there's 5 emergency plans that we tell churches that they need to put in place, and that's to deal with any type of an emergencies that may happen. But in addition to that, we also tell them to look at their operations and assess what risks they might have, because every church is going to be a little bit different depending where they're at. But it may mean just altering their operations. They may not be able to leave their doors open during the day when there's not a mass time going on. If there's certain staff working alone, they may have to lock their doors now. They may have to put intercom systems in so people can be buzzed in. Doing things like background checks on all staff and all volunteers that they have working in the church is critical to know what risks they might be bringing in.
Okay, so when some churches are already maybe doing that, they're limiting, the time that they leave their doors open. What else can they do? How might you prevent something else from coming around? I mean, do you approach the church security in much the same way that you would any other building, or not?
Yeah, they face many of the same risks. When we talk about different crimes from burglaries to theft to incidents of violence, many of these things could be prevented just by creating a sense of awareness throughout the church and training all staff and developing that relationship with your local law enforcement agencies on how to deal with these kind of things. So many of these kind of incidences that we see in the news can just be prevented by just being a little more aware, because unfortunately most churches still feel these kind of things can't happen in our church, that our church is
well, that gets to my point, is don't you think it might be a little antithetical, because they want to keep the doors open. The whole idea is to have an open conduit for God to be able to pray. Is that just being really a little naive in today's world?
Well, I don't think, you don't have to make the church a fortress, that's for sure. We're not at that point yet. But again, you do have to make some changes. Times have changed. What I remember growing up in Chicago in the Catholic Church, where, I could go in and know that there would be no violence in there and the doors were left unlocked, those days are gone.
So, Jeff, what advice would you give to people who are actually sitting in the pews in regards to church security, the churchgoers, the people that attend masses?
Well, we want the church, again, we want people going into the church to be aware of things going on in the parking lot, as they're walking into church, as they're in church. They need to be aware, and they need to be able to report it to somebody if they see something. In the major cities, after post 9/11, we've come up with the phrase, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
And in many of these incidences that we see that happen in churches, many people saw things well before the incident ever took place, but they never acted on it. They never said anything to anybody. They never, approached anybody till after the fact. So again, it's that sense of awareness. And again, people tend to let their guards down when they go to church because of the way they feel church should be. But again, it's not that place anymore.
So do as you would anywhere else, and just make sure that you're aware of your surroundings, that you're able to talk to anybody about something that you see as amiss, and also try and see if you can maybe start a conversation, if there hasn't been something done already, with the people within your church that are organizing it, to just say, what is your plan? What is your security plan? And at least maybe begin that dialogue if they haven't already.
Yeah, we feel that every church, and that's every church, whether you're a country church, a city church, or a suburban church, needs to have a ministry that's dedicated to safety and security, just as you'd have any other ministry in a church. And those folks have to be just very focused on what they could do to make their church safer and more secure.
Interesting. All right, a security ministry. That is a new idea that hopefully will take hold over here at some of the parishes that may need it. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jeff, on Currents. We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you, Francesca. God bless.
And, we've had these incidents that have reminded us, with the priest in New Jersey, the nun now in New Mexico. And really, post 9/11, I think we all have to be aware of anywhere that, these people were alone in their parishes at the time. But anywhere where large crowds might gather, that's somewhere where there could be something that goes on. Like he says, it's kind of like the MTA. If you're on a subway, if you're on a bus, if you see something, say something. The same goes for church as well.
Yeah, I think you kind of let your guard down when you go to church, because you're not there for, you're there for a very, holy reason,
Right.
really. But
A very
but at the same
specific
time,
reason.
there's definitely a lot of things that you can do. I think it's interesting that he said to create, parish security councils. If people aren't doing that, that's something to mention as well. And I'll blog a little bit more about it, and I'll actually put up his website and whatnot if anybody needs to contact him and learn a little bit more about it. I think it's interesting.
Very good, yeah.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead.
Coming up, they've got soul. These musicians are hitting the right note.
It's like this huge energy, and when they get applauded for it, it's like you can see it, their faces are just beaming.
Yesterday, we showed you our visit to the Mercy Home, which gives disabled people a place to call home and helps them live full lives.
As Sister Camille, one of the nuns that you met in the report, said, the Sisters of Mercy have helped people with disabilities concentrate on their abilities, and that has led to some amazing things.
Like a band called Melodic Soul. They're a group of disabled people who are creating music and performing for audiences. And we had a chance to catch their concert last night in Brooklyn Heights. Have a look.
Well, we're here to showcase our band. Mercy Home had a band of children with special needs many, many years ago when they were Mercy Home for Children. And they grew together, and now they're adults, and they're showcasing their skills as professional musicians. They've come together really as a band. We had a contest to name the band, and they call them Melodic Soul. And they're here tonight showcasing their skills and some new original songs that they've put together themselves too.
We love playing amongst ourselves, but there's nothing like playing for a crowd like this and kind of showing off as they like to see it. They're really excited about performing, and it boosts their self-esteem, their morale, socialization skills, and all of that thing literally goes through the roof. It's amazing what they do.
The whole purpose is to kind of get them out in various communities, one, their own community, and another, the broader community at large, so the community of Brooklyn, you could even say. It's like this huge energy, and when they get applauded for it, it's like you can see it, their faces are just beaming. So.
Mercy Home is an agency, an organization, non-for-profit that serves people in mostly Brooklyn and Queens. Serves people with special needs, adults and children, people with disabilities. We've been around a long time.
We primarily go for the needs for kids with autism, which they go through therapy of art therapy and music therapy just to express their creative side, their emotional, since they have a social barrier, so it helps them express themselves.
My experience with the band has made my experience as a musician more enriched and more meaningful. My identity and everyone's individual identity in the band is definitely accented within the scope of the whole band, so it's great. It's been great.
So we started out, My Girl was one of our first country roads, and then we moved on to writing our own songs and improvising a lot, doing hip-hop freestyling, and just kind of exploring what musical skill these guys had to offer.
It's great normalizing exposure to be in Barnes & Noble and to have these adults play like any other band would, and to have people sit down and listen to the music and say, hey, these guys are really good, because they've really rehearsed and practiced. And not only does it get attention for Mercy Home and the good, solid work that we do, but it gets attention to these folks who really have a lot of talent.
Wow.
That is courage and bravery right there, because I know so many people that would not ever want to step on stage and do this. And look at them. They're amazing, and they're having such a great time. And that girl has more rhythm than you do, I think. She dances better than you.
Well, at least Irish step dancing, she dances better than I do. But no, my cheeks literally hurt from smiling all the way through that piece. That's great, and it's wonderful that they're able to get up and do that. Like you said, so many people wouldn't. You know, stage fright is a thing that runs rampant among just your everyday normal person, I guess.
So many people say, I can't, and they just use that as an excuse. Well, you can if you want to, and they did, even though they have all these other obstacles.
Exactly.
You know, as a team, as a group, they come together and they do this, and the public can enjoy it. I mean, how nice is that?
If they can overcome that, I think anybody else could overcome any amount of stage fright that they might have. And they said, the guy mentioned hip-hop freestyling. That's right up your alley, too.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to do a little rap on Currents one of these days, but I won't do it today because I don't think I've cleared it with the bosses over here. But one of these days, rap? Oh, Cedric just told me to rap. There's rap.
We'll play on words.
There's rap.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up. That's all for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, we'll try to make sense of some of all this back and forth that's been going on in the healthcare debate. I'll be joined by a representative from the U.S. Bishops' Conference.
You got to be my beatbox when I do it, though.
Okay, of course, I will. I'll help you out.
Until then, remember, you can always catch us online at currentsny.net.
You can also follow us on Facebook. Facebook.com/CurrentsNY is the address there. Constantly updated throughout the day and throughout all the week long, so check it out. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, Fresh Fran, also known as, I'm just teasing. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.
Fresh Fran.
AKA.